everyone. Very good afternoon. Ekta here from Branalytics. We shall be starting the session in next 2 to 3 minutes. Just waiting for a few speaker and few more audience to join in. Thank you everyone for being here. Hi, everyone. A very good afternoon. Before I start, I just wanted to know if I'm audible. If anyone can just let me know.
Yes,
Yeah, I
Ekta.
could
Yes,
hear
very
you.
much.
Thank you so much. So, hello all. A very good afternoon. Myself, Ekta Dubey, and on behalf of the Brinalytics team and our partner, Ozonetel and Freshworks, we welcome you all on a very interesting webinar, which is Optimize Productivity, Effort and Services by Transforming the Agent Experience. Before we start this webinar, there are a few guidelines that I would like to highlight and make you people aware of. I request all the attendees to please mute yourself and switch off your video when the panel is going on. We will be encouraging a lot of question and answers after the session. Also, if you have any interesting insights or questions during the speakers are taking the sessions, you can put that question on the chat box and we would love to take it from there. Few guidelines for the Q&A after the session. You need to raise your hands, unmute yourself and introduce yourself, put your question to the concerned speakers. Before we get to this very interesting discussion, I'm happy to introduce our partners. Speaking about Freshworks, businesses are built on Freshworks, which makes it easy and fast for businesses to delight their customers and employees. They do this by taking a fresh approach to building and delivering software that is affordable, quick to implement, and designed for the end user. Freshworks has a dedicated team operating from 13 global locations to serve customers throughout the world. Introducing our another partner, Ozonetel. Ozonetel is an industry leader with a customer experience base offering business a robust omni-channel platform to manage end-to-end communication flows. The AI-powered full-stack platform has enabled over 2,500 plus businesses to simplify, manage, and analyze interactions at every step of their customers' communication and engagement journey. And today, we have a lovely set of panelists who will share interesting insights on transforming the agent experience by optimizing productivity, effort, and service as mentioned. Now, first, I would like to introduce a panel moderator, Ms. Garima Gayatri from Ozonetel, to take it from here. Thank you, Garima, for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Ekta, for the lovely introduction, as always. And before we begin, I request all our guests to take some time out to introduce yourselves and let our audience know a bit about yourself and your journey so far in the industry. So we can start with you, Mr. Karthik.
Hi, everybody. I'm Karthik. I currently am the Chief Business Officer for Prudential's Financials joint venture in India, which is branded as Pramerica Life. Funnily so, I'm an expat in my own country on a secondment assignment from Prudential. So that's the funny part of my story. And very, looking forward to this entire panel discussion, because talking about agent productivity, linking it with skill capability as well as brand is something that I'm very passionate about. And I'm a veteran from the Indian Armed Forces and a Special Forces operative. So kind of delved both into the military uniform as well as the corporate world. So blessed to be in that situation and happy to and look forward to our discussion today. Thank you. Thanks, Garima.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Karthik. Pleased to have you with us. Mr. Ajay, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Garima. Karthik, I don't know what I could say after your credentials. Well, I'm purely homegrown Murga from India. My dad was in the army, so maybe that's the correlation that I can draw up with you from the Army Medical Corps, which to me is outstanding. It's a great background. I've spent my career across hotels, hospitality when I started. The first decade, the second was with startups, bringing internet into this country. And the third has been my current assignment in real estate. Delighted to be on this panel. I'm also a user, so I share both the platforms of being a speaker here and a user of Ozonetel. So it'll be interesting and engaging. Look forward to a eventful chat, so to speak. Thank you, Garima.
Yeah, wow. Thank you so much, Ajay. Moving on, Arundhati, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Garima. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Arundhati. I'm the founder and lead coach at Rathi. And our aim is to unlock potential that organizations and professionals already have. I've switched careers. I have come from the healthcare industry and the media industry to running ops and key account leads to now running a coaching and training initiative. I'm looking forward to this discussion and figuring out how we can improve customer experience by focusing on the agents.
Thank you so much, Arundhati. Pleased to have you with us. Krishna, you may introduce yourself, please.
So thank you, Garima. Good afternoon, everyone. It's pleasure meeting you all here at this forum. So this is Krishna Kumar. I work as a lead solution consultant for CX sort of products with Freshworks. So I handle the enterprise market, and I come with an experience of 9 years with various roles of customer support, customer advisory to brands across globe. So my primary responsibility roles is like to identify the customer pain points, the use case, and help them with delivering the right fit solutions through the technology. So yeah, I'm really excited to meet you all here and looking forward to an insightful session.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Krishna. Shashank, over to you.
Hi, my name is Shashank. I through and through retailer, work with German retailer B2B model. I work with Tesco. I work with some online companies, some beauty retail industry. Currently, I am with pharma retail chain here. So throughout 15, 16 of experience dealing with customers, understanding them, but still they are evolving. Let's see how we can discuss today and find some solution for them today. Let's.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shashank, for joining us. Over to you, Ram.
Hey, thanks, Garima. Hi, everyone. This is Ram Pradeep. I'm a senior product consultant at Ozonetel Communications, and I've been associated with this org from 2012. So we have been providing solutions on voice technology. We started with voice, and then now we are into omni-channel experience by collaborating with CRM integrations, third-party tools. So that API driven approach. So I'm here. I'm very glad to connect with all of you to explore all this, agent productivity. How do we enhance this in the market?
Thank you so much, Ram. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And we definitely have a fantastic panel, and I'm sure our audience will come up with some really interesting and thought-provoking questions as well during the discussion. So we can start with our discussion now. Customer service is the front line of most customer interactions and often maybe the only human interaction with the brand. This is something we all can agree with. A single bad customer experience. That's all it takes for customers to leave and eventually adds to the cost of acquiring new customers. But one good experience can change the entire narrative of the relationship between the customer and the brand. So how can businesses ensure that each caller has a positive experience with their company? And how critical is the role of agents in initiating more empathetic and personalized customer communication? Today, businesses understand one thing, that they only have one chance to make a first impression, and that first impression can make or break their brand. Our guests today will help us understand this dynamic better. They'll break down how a better agent experience can lead to improved customer experience. And most importantly, what goes into curating meaningful agent experiences. On this note, I have the very first question for all our speakers today. Contact center agents today are experiencing more stress than ever. Rising call volumes, anxious customers, complex queries, new technologies, hybrid work environment. It's all adding up. What are some of the most common causes of agent frustration that you see today? And Mr. Karthik, you can start the conversation. You're on mute, sir. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll take a segue from what you kind of talked about, Garima. You talked about rising call volumes and irate customers. You talked about work from home. I think those are challenges which I think over time a typical agent would overcome and would probably get settled in. Maybe not seamlessly, but maybe through and throughout, push and pull would kind of settle them to kind of overcome these challenges. I think the expectation of the customer is probably reached at a different level in today's time, given the COVID experience, given the 10-minute delivery syndrome, all of that, right? So everything is expected to be instant. Instant gratification is something that all of us live by. Given that being the biggest challenge, I feel that a lack of skill, regular skill enhancement for these agents to kind of come in terms with the changing customer requirements and expectation. It has to be a process that's more parallel rather than a stop and a go process. I think that's the bigger challenge that frustrates an agent today, because at some point of time they're leading into the blind. And point number two, and to be very crisp, is about their understanding of this product or that service or the brand that they are kind of representing is not to the tune of what a typical brand manager in that company would be aware of. I think at some point of time, companies should start equating the level of knowledge they want to impart an agent to be in terms of understanding the brand purpose, the brand itself, because the brand manager is still at the back end of the entire story, but who's facing the customer day in and day out at crazy volumes is the agent. So I think these are two, the lack of understanding of the brand and the regular skill enhancement are more frustrating for an agent in my view today, as compared to the other challenges that can be settled down over a period of time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great points, Karthik. Thank you so much. Arundhati, how would you like to add to this?
So in fact, I'm going to crisply put up 2 points, and I'm half agree with Karthik, what Karthik has to say, not half agree, fully agree in terms of the understanding and the training needs. The first thing that I think is frustrating agents today is actually overestimation, and that overestimation is on both sides. One is the overestimation in the ability of the agent or the customer experience team to articulate the problem statement accurately. Whoever is solutioning for them, they think that they're the stakeholders, so they're saying the right things. So that's one thing, the overestimation of that ability. And then there is the second level of overestimation that the agents are facing in their minds, is that I'm telling someone my problem and that other person completely understands, that they're aware of the process, they know how I work, they know all of it. So when I'm telling them these 5 things, they're going to fix it for me. So I think that's one thing, which is the overestimation on both sides. And that's where the understanding piece also comes in.
Right.
Everybody has to be on the same page. And the second bit is the softer aspect, the human aspect of it. We expect agents today to be more understanding, more empathetic, give the experience of, yes, we really get you to the customer. But I think at some point they're limited in that capacity because they can't give much of what they don't get. So if I as an agent don't feel understood, my pain point's not addressed, I don't feel empathy, I'm then going to be at a point of time limited in extending that to my end customer as well. So I think these are the 2 things that I see as a gap which needs to come into when we're talking about agent performance today.
Absolutely. And I feel that empathy is such a widely used term, but to what extent are we actually translating that into action is something we would be looking at in the later part of the discussion today. Moving on, Krishna, how would you like to add to this? What do you think are some of the most frustrating, issues that the agents are experiencing today?
So to add to Karthik's point, right, about the brand awareness and brand knowledge, and even more adding to that, like I feel agents should be equipped with more domain knowledge, right? Because attrition being the major problem in the customer support area, and there's like a new set of people joining at regular intervals, and they come from various backgrounds, and educating on the domain is something that really is a need of an hour. So when they have the respective domain knowledge, they'll be able to understand the customer problems at the place, and they'll be able to address it regularly. And to add other point which I had here is generally the support agents work with the tight SLAs, right? Their job nature is working on tight SLAs. There is always a clock running above their head. And so equipping them with the productivity tools, or like the tools which helps them to save the time, and also the maybe put in a more clear way, like reducing the repetitive work, right? Generally, the call center agents or any agents, they tend to do the repetitive works. They just get the recurring questions which they have to answer again and again, and they become rusty at point of a day, right? So we have to engage them with the productive tools, make the work environment more engaging, and also a bit of fun added to the working environment. Well, I think would definitely solve this stress issue, and maybe I think we'll address more in the next few sessions.
Right, right. That's a great point, Krishna, because moving on, we can say that, the hybrid work environment did impact the mental health of agents to such a great extent. And that is very difficult for the common man to understand. And I think through this discussion, you all will be able to highlight the challenges, hands-on challenges they're experiencing at their work, and, how they're trying to manage, both ends of the spectrum. So moving on, Ajay, how would you like to add to this? What do you think are some of the most common challenges that our agents are experiencing today?
Thanks, Garima. I quite agree with the points Karthik, Krishna, and Arundhati raised. I think if at a call center level, the switching cost is very low, right? It's very easy in today's time because demand is so high that it's very easy to switch, and hence attrition is very high. There's nothing much you can do. It's the nature of the beast. It happens across industries. Having said that, I agree with Krishna. The more you automate, you reduce the bringing up to speed time for a new agent. And hence automation, a knowledge base, workflow driven. I think these are very simple, easy to use. It reduces frustration levels. The third is empowerment. Unfortunately, in the environment today, and I'm a bit of an outlier, so to speak, I've had the good fortune of having, while we do outsource manpower, but it's all on premise. And that's a mandate that I've had because not just in real estate, it has happened when I was with internet startups. The advantage is the person understands the brand when the person is on premise. Off premise, it just becomes a cattle shed, if I can use that word, right? I mean, it's all herded together. You're just under pressure with a whip to maintain your average handle time, your talk time, and your abandon rate. Very difficult for the person to empathize. And Arundhati used the word empathize. You use the word empathize. It's close to impossible to empathize that person's reality because they are just put in with blinkers on. Start time, your login time and log out time, and in between, yes, you can have some entertainment, etc. But I find it very immersive, and I'll give you the example of what we do. We don't hire people for our contact center. We hire them for real estate as an industry. Big difference. For all of them who have come in fresh, doe-eyed, they move out of these graveyard shifts, etc. A career. I've had the good fortune of people who joined around 12 years back. Today, they're heading real estate, CRMs across the NCR. And I find that very gratifying for the agent. If there's a career path for them, and not just an agent, I understand if it's just an outsourced model, but if there's a career path for them, it's not always monetary. I do think people will stick around, but it's a 50-50 call because money matters, and with demand being as it is, people will switch. So I think most important is having technology to back them. If at all, empowerment, and I don't mean empowerment is that they can take all decisions, but even if, on a scale of 10, if they can take 2 decisions, they feel empowered to not have to escalate it to a L1 or L2, but be able to resolve it themselves. Just my few pointers on this very.
Right. And I think that's a very raw and realistic picture that you have given us, Ajay. And Ram, how would you like to add to this? Because so far what we have understood is that employee engagement, employee experience, mental health, all of these are very important aspect of the entire story. So how are you looking at this question? What do you think are the most frustrating, issues that our agents are experiencing today?
Sure. Thanks, Karima. I agree with Ajay. Thanks for that real-time examples, what's happening in that real estate case, right? Where they're on the go, how they are experiencing, how they are facing the customers. So one of the points which I could recollect and connect what Karthik has said, right? So the agents need that branding, so that cascading from the high level thought process till the agents. So that's where the brands, agents are the one who are front facing to customers. So that too, we are in 2022, maximizing productivity is non-negotiable. That's what I feel. That's just what we are all talking now. So in the, like Karthik mentioned and Arundhati mentioned, in the pandemic, right? So we observed the need of virtual support is very important. It was very much needed. And customer expectations, like Arundhati said, expectations are very high, it's skyrocketing. So as a layman, even I feel that. So when I want some support, when I call a toll-free number, so I needed an instant response rather than being, queue time, all that. So agent experience has become increasingly complex. Agents are now engaging with more customers than ever. Earlier, we had for a day so many calls. There was some limitations, or there was a count, right? Now in a day, even with our clients, when I see a day 30,000 calls, 40,000 calls, how many calls they are taking in a day is something like countless, right? So there are some reports which says 91% of agents are required to access multiple screens, dashboards, right, and systems when handling with a typical customer interaction. This is something they are getting into frustration. These are the terms we were listening in the last few minutes. So they are frustrated. They don't have information. They don't know the brand details. So all this is something we have to overcome. So these are all typical pain points which I could see.
Right, Ram. And I think you've used a very important term, complex, because everything is getting complex. The queries are getting complex. The customers are getting smarter. They are very well informed today, and they know how to, use self-service tools, and everything is just becoming complex for the agent, for the people on the other side who are trying to help our customers. But the customer today, I think, is getting smarter, and that's where the challenge lies. And how do we create that balance is something we'll try to understand today. So Shashank, how would you like to add to this?
If you see the expectation, I think we need to first understand what is the company objective and vision. If we are clear on those, then we need to start making our frontline ready for this. If we are not clear in our thoughts, it will not percolate down to them, because they are facing our customer. They should know everything which is required to run the company. For example, pharma industry. Any customer who is calling us, or they're visiting my store, or they're reaching to us in any platform, they expect medicine to be available every time. So our first customer promise is very clear from the top, bottom, and everyone: availability of medicine every time and anytime. And we do not only expect customer just to call on command center or call center and come to my store. Any channel which is available. The true hyperlocal omni-channel is what we are helping our agent to. It's not only agent to come with many problem what customer is facing. People are also be cognizant and ready, so that we can start working in backend. For example, any customer from say east move to say western part of India and that medicine is not available, we as a company, we ensure that is available for that particular customer, and there we spend a lot of money. That's how we empower our front-end line customers. Second, make sure they're also into the solution mode. So once we start evaluating them, let them give a lot of feedback to us and start engaging them, giving in terms of solution, what could be the problem and what could be the solution. And basis those input, let's make some agent as a leader temporary within the group and help them provide the solution and implement them. I think that's how we can make this situation better. Otherwise, everyone added a lot of call volume. People are migrating to call center. They need instant solutions and so on and so forth. But we need to also think the last thing, which is creating the workbench. Attritions are very high. People are coming and leaving, and the expectation what we set for trained team, that may get diluted if we are not keeping our workbench right. We are not keeping the workforce which is to be replaced the outgoing ones. I think that three things is very, very important so that we can keep our stress team very relaxed.
Absolutely, absolutely, Shashank. And one important key takeaway from this is that the leadership has a very important role to play. And I'm sure you all will be elaborating upon this subject as well during the session. And before we move on, we have a poll question for our audience. Ekta, if you could put that up, please. Yeah, it's there on the screen. Let's take a few seconds to complete this and we'll move on to the next question.
Can I end the poll, share the results?
Yeah, yeah. So the question was, happy agents make happy customers. How can businesses ensure this? 75% of the audience feels that all these are very important aspect of the story, which is providing right tools and technology, training and support, gathering customer insights. And we will be taking up these issues in detail. So please stick with us till the end. So moving on, Krishna, I have one question for you. We have tried to understand the common challenges which our agents are experiencing today, right? So identifying customer pain points is definitely not an easy task. It is very challenging. So how are you looking at this? How are you helping businesses to address the challenges everyone just spoke about? And how can businesses get a 360-degree view of customer data that can help their teams to collaborate better and deliver more personalized experiences across various touch points?
Yeah, so to answer this question, I would like to start with the maybe even not my personal scenario. Like each of everyone has faced this, right? Like I hope everyone using the UPI payments for your online payments, right? And this one particular issue, like most of us have faced, the transaction got failed, but your money would have been debited from a bank.
Yeah.
And when you reach out to your vendor or your business, right, reaching for a solution, immediate solution will be like it'll be debited 3 to 4 working days, right? But what happens, right? Any customer, when he has this interaction with the business, right? He'll just initiate this conversation with social media team. Then he'll go to the website chatbot or something. Then he'll finally have the end up reaching out to the call center agent. But he'll unanimously get the same response from every every team which handling working across a different medium, right? Which end up the customer getting frustrated, right? Because he's getting the repetitive answers, but there is no resolution. But actually, what is the reason behind this? When we see behind the scene, right? What is the actual reason? Is the agent? If you see, considering the efficiency of agents, business nowadays like having dedicated teams for dedicated channels, and the problem is each channel don't have visibility across each other, right? For example, say there is a team A working on social media and team B working on calls. The team A doesn't have visibility on team B. Similarly, the vice versa. So what happens when they don't have enough customer context? They what is their earlier conversation? What is the history? That what was the resolution provided in previous time? When they don't have all these data, agents end up giving the template answers, right? Which increases the frustration for more for the customer. So to cater this, the industry is slowly shifting towards a approach called customer 360, right? Which is nothing but the uh, the entire data of customer in a single view. And not only what I mean by entire data is the each and every touch point of the customer where he engages with the business or brand is captured, and it's given in a visual format for the agent, so they have the complex context. This is the customer 360. And I'm saying why we need customer 360, or what will be the advantage of customer 360 is, right? The agents can deliver the right solution at the right time. This is the same example which I was explaining, right? So if the agent would have had this context, right? Okay, the customers already reached out to social media team. They have given the same the response that the money will be debited back in 3 days, and now he knows the context that they have already got the answer. So okay, now what else I can do for like what are the like what is the frequency of this issue this customer has faced? Do I need to raise it to a technical team? So he'll have the better context so that he can give a realistic solution to the customer, right? And the next is like it's not when you see now after COVID, all the business are slowly moving to the digital space, right? And the main difference between in physical stores and the digital space is, right, the hand-holding support, right? The physical connect, basically the connect which that a customer gets, right? But in now in the all the online era, like, so we don't get that. When you have this customer data, the agents can
We can't hear you, Krishna. There's some glitch, I think. Can you try rejoining? Maybe there's some issue with your headphones. Try without the headphones. While Krishna joins us, Ram, would you like to take it up?
Yeah, Garima. So I was happy to see some comments on some UPI.
Hey, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah. Yes, we can hear you, Krishna.
Yeah.
So Ram, we'll come back to you. Krishna, you may continue.
Yes. So when you give a personalized experience to a customer, they have this connection, and the trust with the brand increases thereby. So when how an agent can give a customized experience, like when they have the complex context of customer, then they can give the effective personalized support to the customers. And third, not only about the post sales or service, right? Even we can use this data for our sales activities or marketing campaigns, right? When you have the historical data of customer, like what is their purchasing history, or what is their affinity and the preference of customer, when you have all these data, we can also use data to proactively engage the customers with all marketing campaigns. We can also increase the revenue thereby. So not only the support, also the other aspect, the revenue aspect also will be solved with this data. And now coming to the technology, where technology comes into place, right? So on an average, an enterprise business actually employs around 100 tools for their various tasks and various use cases. And all these customer data resides various across these tools, and they work in silo, right, in this joint manner. So there should be a system which holds this integration, which brings in all the data from different systems and give it in a single view for the agent. And since there is a large amount of data, there should be a tight integration. The system should be capable of handling those tight integrations, and also an easy to use tool, right? Like since there's a lot of integrations, and there is also each tools will have its own UI, so the compatibility between the system. So the support system should have this the capability of this having compatible with all other systems in the landscape, and provide a better user experience for agent, in which it can help him provide a better resolution for the customer.
Absolutely. I'm trying to pick up some important keywords here, and context is something that you used, which is definitely the key to very strong communication between the agent and the customer. So moving on, Ram, how would you like to add to this?
Yeah, thanks, Krishna. You have given one real-time example as UPI payments. So even there I connected to my personal experience. One way I'm surprised, the other way I'm delighted when I had this experience with IRCTC app. Okay. So I had a failed transaction, then I called up on the support. I'm surprised that they were so quick in answering. The queue time was very, very minimal. Probably I called up in a less traffic time. then I had an answer that relevant information, typical information has been given to me, which I'm so totally satisfied. So like Krishna mentioned, agent has the relevant data is something key here. So if they were not provided with a proper tool which can boost their experience, then we as a customers can't get the that beneficiaries or the relevant support from the respective agents. So I recollect the point again what Karthik said. So the branding, which the hierarchy, the management has to cascade that to the agents. By thinking in that way, the same thought process has to be given to the L1 engineers, so that they are focused. They were given the right trainings by providing right tools. So now you might hear a new term in the market, unified desktop, a single sign-on experience. So why don't we provide all these as a ready-made tool? Now every application is on cloud, right? So all these clouds, they all extend their APIs. We can integrate, collaborate with multiple applications. And like Krishna mentioned, it's a 360-degree view. If we provide the unified window within one single login screen, the agents can have a customer data, either a call data or a ticket details or a task, all customer payment details, so that they can easily navigate into the tool and provide right information right away during the call. So they don't keep customers on hold. So the collaboration is something we have to see as a key element with all the sources, all the channels, and the data comes under one roof.
Absolutely, absolutely, Ram. Thank you so much, Ram and Krishna, for highlighting that, for articulating this picture so well. Moving on, Shashank, what do you think about the KPIs? They are being discussed so much, and in certain cases, they are also overhyped. According to you, what are the KPIs that are most reliable and relevant indicators for measuring customer satisfaction and the overall customer experience?
One is definitely the in ensuring we have satisfied customer base, and we need to measure and listen every call, random also the top management, and every line people should listen to them. The first KPI is not the agent. First KPI should be the company level. People should listen to those voices, spend some time with the customer, understand those problems, and start working. This is the first KPI I feel, not to the CX, but to the other people who is involved in that. Second KPI is for any new launches and any new thing we introduce, like technology, products, many other things. We need to ensure that we do a lot of dummy, lot of trial things before we go and get real-time live for the CX to use. Once we have these two things very clear, and I told you also the clarity in terms of what we are looking for, then we can put the metrics on reducing the call time volume, giving real-time solutions, and what Ram added, all information and single click should be available for them. And then they can start measuring, and that will help lot many things. For example, we are a pharma retail chain, so we need to do a lot of cross-sell, upscale, many other things. Not only the problem and solution mode, but also giving a lot of input to them, what is available. So one is inbound customer query resolution, time bound and solution mode. Second is how they're adding value to the company revenue. That is the second metrics I think we can think on. Third metrics is like Gemba work. They should be part of the solution, not only the problem zone. And last not the least, training also one of the key metrics for their KPI. I think
Right.
they are the KPI which I think of.
Right. Some very important points to look at. Arundhati, how are you looking at this? And what, according to you, are the most reliable indicators for measuring customer satisfaction and overall CX?
So there are some brilliant points that have come to the table, and that actually puts light into how complex this entire scenario is, and how complex tracking has become across multiple channels, and locking it down. My very first preference of reliability is always customer generated feedback. When I give feedback on my own without a prompt, understanding that there's a negative bias, because more often than not, somebody is prompted to give feedback when something doesn't go as they like. So that's to be mindful of when we're considering customer initiated feedback. The second bit is your day-to-day working. We need to have parameters to go back to on a daily working. And there is where NPS, it can be as simple as a rating scale to call outs, to figuring out how the customer experience was. But according to me, NPS also has some level of subjectivity built in at times, because you're expecting the customer to respond in a certain way and not sure when we're catching them for that feedback. Here is when a lot of the solutions, the digital solutions and automated solutions can help, where it's getting triggered after a customer experience is complete immediately. So on flights these days, before you land or just after you land, you get an SMS saying, how was your experience? So it's very relevant, it's very time bound. You've just experienced it and you get to give a feedback. And that's where some solutions and automations definitely help. And I actually agree with Shashank on all 3 points, and the main one being revenue. Business is revenue. We all are working towards generating money for the company. So for me, renewals and referrals, that has to tie back to the agent experience. Larger evolved companies and industries in the insurance space have contact centers dedicated to it. But there are companies who have smaller contact centers and smaller teams who are also doing CX and trying to figure out how to make the product better. It's better if my customer comes back.
Yes.
And if they get me 2 more. So those are the parameters I think that we should look at. Of course, many of these are tracked at organization level. And it doesn't necessarily filter down right to the agent experience and the agent level. And that's something for us to consider. How do we do that? How do we assign good performance and retention to the agent versus inability to do so? So I think these 3 things are something that I would look at as a true marker of customer satisfaction and experience.
Right. A very interesting aspect that you highlighted, Arundhati, is my customer coming back? And if the customer is coming back, why? That's also an important question that we need to look at, because repeat business does not necessarily mean customer loyalty, right? So this is also one aspect we'll be discussing in our session today. Moving on, Ajay, how are you looking at the gaps that exist in agent training currently? Because we've talked about making life simpler for our agents, right? We are talking about making our customers happy. But how exactly do we ensure that? And you used a very important term, empowerment. How exactly do we ensure that they're empowered to do all that they can to provide the best experience for the customers, and also at the same time we are taking care of their well-being? So what are the gaps that you see in currently perceive in agent training today, and how do you suggest businesses move forward with this?
Thanks, Garima. I think while the matrices, we've spoken about the various matrices that apply, 99% of what really works in life is common sense. We tend to deviate from using common sense, getting caught up with jargons and technology and terminologies, and that becomes the buzzword. Fundamental is common sense. And this common sense is not just for that poor agent. They are as smart as you and I are. They only lack experience. And I'll give you a couple of examples. If the process is, okay, let's just set up a contact center to handle all the rubbish that's happening, you will get rubbish back. But you have set them up as a knowledge house to be able to give the business information. And I think one of my fellow panelists mentioned that this has to be a continuous loop. The continuous loop is they receive the calls. Imagine how, I think the biggest part of attrition is one, if the agents are not empowered to respond, or it is repetitive. You'll be amazed how the same question comes again and again and again and again. And that agent on his 50 calls a day, if 20-25% of that is the same call, at the end of the day, the guy says, what am I doing? And for that, the management or whoever the client is, it is imperative for them. And I think one is a sounding board. And I did that and successfully. When whichever campaign we launched, we mandated not just the business head or the marketing head, but accounts, finance, HR, all of them came, listened to calls, and they took calls. Now, when you do that, they have a skin in the game.
Right.
They understand that, that is one part. I mean, that's an easy thing. Do a couple of calls, at least then they empathize with what that poor person is facing. The second is, of course, this feedback. There has to be root cause analysis and continuous feedback, which empowers, or the technology, which, Ozonetel, etc., would do, that makes it so user-friendly that you can feed that information back. That information goes to customers, and it reduces repetition. Repetition is the death knell for any contact center.
Right.
If it is new, if it is fresh, the agent is happy, saying, oh, I never came across a situation like this. Interesting. Find an answer that goes back in the knowledge base. So how quickly can you give the agent information back or to the customers requires a ear to the ground approach of the business that either is outsourced or is running campaigns through the contact center. Otherwise, you've just left an outpost to deal on their own, and it does not improve. So to me, I think these are very, very fundamental. Of course, FTR, if that's one of the key matrices to drive, the company drives towards an FTR, so it doesn't go through escalation levels and falls between the gaps, between teams, because it's a space that can be exploited very well. Just these for me are, I think, very, very fundamental. If the business is sensitive to saying, hey, this is for me, and that feedback is important for them to improve their product or service, I think it works wonderfully well. For example, what we do when we hire people is, while they go through an orientation, all that is fine. We take them through to all our project sites. The reason we do that is the guy cannot talk to you about it unless he knows what is this physical structure looking like? And I'm talking of a physical product. And I'm sure this applies to everybody who is using a contact center. They must engage with the product. It's only then that they can respond with a sense of ownership, if I can use that word. Yeah.
Right. Totally with you on this, Ajay. Karthik, how would you like to add to this? Because one aspect of this narrative is also that this is probably the only interaction that customers get to do with a human agent on the other side. And we have been discussing empathy and personalization as well. So when it comes to the training part, how can we ensure that the agents are able to initiate more empathetic, more personalized communication with the customers? And as Ajay highlighted, that it's very important to understand the brand itself, how well they are aligned with the brand message, the brand vision, the goal, how well they understand the product. This is also a very integral aspect of this narrative. So how would you like to take this forward?
It's an interesting question from a perspective that it kind of surrounds everything around what customer experience one could bring. But before I kind of get into it, Ajay, really impressed with that thought. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said initially, it took a long queue time for me to come back and compliment you about when you said you hire for real estate, but you don't hire for contact centers, right? So I think a fundamental foundation that you're laying in the way you're recruiting people is very important. I would like to kind of set the context on two aspects. The first context where I'm coming from is, contact centers, Garima and everybody else, and my panelists, we not only now using for customer service, right? I think in the digital first world where every product and service is now being positioned for a digital business on an online mode, a marketplace, most of the journeys of the customer on that product or on that service does not happen completely online to online. At some point of time, it goes from online to offline journey, or the journey goes from online to assisted journeys. Right. So what's happening is that there is a separate team or the same contact center, which is also getting into assisted sales, right? So a customer service professional is also ending up becoming a sales professional at the end of the day. And to Arundhati's point, that's where more revenue, more referrals kind of makes sense, right? So it kind of builds that up. The second context is little bit about what I deal with. So I deal with a product that nobody needs. Okay, prima facie nobody needs, and I'm talking about life insurance, right? And nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "I got to buy life insurance." People wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I got to renew my car insurance, otherwise I'll get caught on the road." People would talk about, I want to get up in the morning, and probably post-COVID, wave 2 specifically, when there were no hospital beds available, but still people want to buy health insurance. But ironically and unfortunately, with COVID deaths also mounting, there's still not a need for life insurance that has settled into the mind of the consumer. That's point number one. Point number two, using that as a pretext. When we look at both customer service as assisted sales, it's very tough because the product is complex. The customer does not understand it. So imagine if a contact center agent has been given a script and asked to kind of follow the script from 1 to 2 to 2 to 3, and has to judge the customer's questions, queries, as well as responses, and move from 3 to 4. It becomes so mechanical, it seems like a Robocop on duty, right? Probably where we would want to go towards training and enablement is, can you make it more intuitive? Use what Ajay said, common sense being the fundamental. Can we look at intuitive approach on kind of reading what the customer is looking at? That's step one. Point number two, more and more spoken about today in the first 20-30 minutes about the brand and about how the connect has to happen. You've got some of the tools like making on-premise contact center may be difficult for larger corporations, but a mid-sized corporation could really go into it and kind of connect the brand. But the connection to the brand will come when the executives or the leaders of the brand are there in person, in front of the contact center executive, probably at a much higher frequency than what they're doing today. Today, the head of customer service is the only one who probably would visit a custom contact center, which is offshore, to kind of do an audit, look at multiple SLAs as Krishna spoke about, kind of measure everything and kind of give a feedback and then come back. But probably, let's say as a business officer, can I go out? As a CEO, someone goes out? Can the CFO, as Ajay mentioned, go out? Probably take calls and understand. It's the best way to understand the customer. The customer behavior is very well reflected in a contact center between day 1 to day 10. A sales guy can go, an offline sales guy will take months to come back with feedback about how customers have changed. But a contact center professional can tell you what the customer's needs, how is it changing in a short span of 7 days. The third thing I would talk about is, when we create businesses, when we create models, when we create products, we always talk about keeping the customer in the center. But when you're looking at acquiring customers through the contact center or servicing customers who are already your customers, can you still keep the customer in the center and not remove him and replace it with a product? Which means you would have, as a business, customer personas that you would have created. That who's my target segment? What is my TAM? Which kind of personas am I going to service the product to, or am I going to sell the product to? Can that entire information, which is the customer persona, which is the TAM, the TG, be available with a customer contact center agent? Because he's day in and day out meeting them. And he can come back and loop in much better, like Ajay said, a constant loop to say, you know what, there's something wrong happening with your TAM. You are thinking that your ideal customer is aged below 40 and is a tier 3 residing person. But the questions that I'm getting and the queries that I'm getting shows a very different outlook. You're a B2C brand. So for a B2C brand, it makes a lot of importance to kind of look at regular loop in on the customer persona. So that kind of information needs to be there with the contact center agent. That kind of training needs to happen to the contact center agent. And last is, we all spoke about, Garima, you spoke about empathy, right? You said empathy is a key word that is emerging. Can I train my contact agent to be more mindful rather than empathetic?
Yes.
To Ram's point, he said there's a time today that he's witnessing that there are 30,000 to 40,000 calls that a contact center is taking in a day. Now imagine a heavy B2C business, right? And I'm talking about, let's say, a banking service, where the volume of transaction in a bank itself is so large. So imagine if they have a contact center, what would be the volume of transactions that the contact center would be handling on a day-to-day basis? If that's true, it's very difficult for a contact center agent who's churning a volume of around, let's say, 120 calls to 140 calls to have the same patience, have the same level of understanding, have the same tonality, and have the same kind of experience that he or she wants to provide to the customer. So at some point of time, there are entertainment sections, there are rest, all of that breaks. But I'm saying, can you kind of help them being more mindful, so which makes their conversation also with the customer crispier, but more meaningful?
Right.
Rather than going from step A to step B to step C and someone measuring that, have you done the 7 steps or not?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was my 2 bit on it. Thank you.
No, that's very crucial, and I think Ram can add to this, because this is something that remains a challenge, I would say, because yes, we talk a lot about empathy and personalization, but how do we actually translate that into reality is definitely a huge challenge, as Karthik highlighted. And Ram, please help us understand, what are the gaps are you looking at? Ram, you're on mute.
Thanks.
Yeah.
There are 2 key points which I could, take. There are key takeaways I can say from Ajay and Karthik. Like Ajay said, product knowledge is important. When you have given a task to an agent, he should have the relevant knowledge so that he can give a right answer to the right customer, right? And like Karthik said, that script should not be mechanical. Okay, so when he talked about this LIC insurance or something, so when we had some downtime in the family, I had to call up the insurance, ICICI insurance. Then I had a very good response from them saying, hope you're doing well. You are how is the health of your XYZ? We had seen in the last 6 months you had filled in so and so. So I feel that they had a right product information, the right tool they are using, so that they could communicate with me in the due course. I know he's searching for other information which I asked for, and he's doing his due diligence of communicating, and he's doing his search of task what is given by me during that questioning, right? So like Karthik mentioned, when we are giving tools to them, why don't we keep the customer as centric there? When we are hiring L1 engineers, L2 engineers, think from a customer point of view, with the right approach, right guidance is important for these guys, so that customer is key everywhere. So right, so one of the use cases what we do in the integrations with Freshworks, with our tools, right? So when we do it can be any channels. Like when we talk about customer experience, it can be a voice channel, a digital channel, maybe a Twitter, social media, Facebook Messenger. So all these data coming under one roof, and this data is something, it can be a self-driven, self-service oriented IVRs, IVRS applications. You can have a self-service data. So all this data, right? So when most of the queue time is completed, if we can pass this, whatever the journey, or maybe a queue journey or a chat journey, to the agent, so that he don't ask the repeated questions, so that right knowledge is given. So what we do through these integrations, we will pass the bot information or a voice application, the journey in DTMF responses, we say technically. So all those values, we will pass it to the agent screen on, so that the unified window has complete customer information along with the journey details, so that he don't do the repeated tasks. So now with this information instantly, if he has a right product knowledge, he can collate all these and communicate to the customer appropriately, and then he can deliver the solution or deliver the right information.
Right. Thanks, Ram. Arundhati, how would you like to add to this? What are the gaps that you perceive in agent training today?
So in fact, brilliant points made so far when it comes to agent training. I'm actually going to pick up from what Ajay said, that the processes are so set that there are blinkers at times. So that's number one, that, you're trained on processes that step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Then there is that repetition of work. You come in, take those calls, go back home. It sort of gets to you. The one thing that I see is when we're setting out processes and detailing things is to reiterate client context. So one is having unified information about your customer, whether they've reached out to you before, what was the nature of the query, having a unified ticketing. But the more important bit after setting this up is the client context. I come from the healthcare sector. I know in the morning, a hungry customer is an angry customer. In the morning, they have a few tests. If we don't get it done on time, they are going to be angry. So that sort of understanding has to be reiterated to the agents. And given that there's attrition, a one-time training is not enough. Everyone in the system has to go through multiple levels of iteration of this is our customer, this is our customer's persona, and this is the context in which they're coming to us. In the healthcare sector, they're already stressed. So they will sound stressed. You don't need to mirror that. You have to be able to calm them down. So that's the first thing in terms of reiterating where they're coming from. The second thing I think is also important in training are the practical aspects. Everybody has a comm skills module. Your opening has to be a certain way, your closing has to be a certain way. There are scripts put in place. We tell our agents that you have your voice and tone has to be calm, empathetic, and all of that. But the very, very practical aspects that agents don't see for themselves is how their own body language, how their own cues affect the way they respond. And I'm going to try and tell this audience, why don't you try and frown and say a pleasant opening? That doesn't happen. And when this frustration of repeated answering the same things again and again, and not being able to handle the query without sort of having the right tools in place, without having the right knowledge, that frown is going to show up in your communication, in the voice, in the message, in everything. So this is a very small bit, but a very practical aspect of training the agent also to identify how their own mind space and their own non-verbal cues are affecting how the customer experience takes about. And of course, lastly is the actual process training in terms of how to use the tools that are deployed for them. Because companies are going ahead and investing in automation and tools. And that's going to give you brilliant results so as long as your agent knows exactly what to do with them. Where is the help available for query A, or where is it available for query B? And this also then dovetails into Ajay's point and Karthik's point of the business sensitivity. Anyone who's solutioning for the agent, so Ram and Krishna Kumar, I'm sure you guys have invested this time. When you solution it out, you have to spend time to see how the end agent is using it. What are their challenges? Are they using it the way it was intended or not? So these are the things that will then get plugged into training and will eventually also affect the kind of solution we would want to roll out. So one is, of course, customer context and reiteration. Second is very practical tips to the agents on how their own mind space and how their own body language affects communication. And third, the very important solutioning bit and accounting for training of those solutions so that the experience can be optimized and then you get better data as well.
Right. I think one important key takeaway is that how do we build that connect with the customer is something that we are looking at when we are talking about the gaps in agent training, which Ajay, Karthik, you and Ram have highlighted. So moving on, Karthik, you talked about putting the customer first, right? With everything changing around us, how do we ensure that we not just put the customer first, but we also maintain that throughout the customer's journey? So where is how is the role of data and analytics and all of this, and how advanced analytics can actually help contact centers put the customers first while they are trying to analyze the performance of their agents? How are you looking at this side of the story, and where do you feel companies are going wrong when it comes to going through the granular details of these analytics?
Sure. So let me start from the latter part. It's easy to kind of say that generally what we hear, and I heard Ajay also kind of mentioning that you're talking about when you measure the data in a contact center. Typically, you're looking at the lead time, you're looking at aborted, the number of calls that were aborted, you look at total hold time, you look at the queue up time, you're looking at various times in terms of the SLAs of a contact center. And probably what a couple of years ago, most of the contact centers and companies were doing is they were trying to see, is there a trend that you could see in a certain type of a customer? So are certain type of customers, the call time is much larger than a different type of customers belonging to a different geography. They also went ahead and said, okay, are a certain section of customers that we reach out to on an outbound call, there is a large number of aborts that are happening as compared to this geography. Great, right? So it helps you understand, okay, what different type of customers behave when it comes to handling a call. But what's happening in terms of data analytics, and what's probably the AI and machine learning, if employed well within the entire UI UX experience that Krishna spoke about, that customer 360 approach spoke about, is will churn a lot of other form of analytics. What is that? Are you looking at different types of customer behaviors that are coming up, irrespective? Are you looking at different age groups responding to a call at a different point of time? What is as I said earlier, what is the movement of your TAM? You had started out with a certain target segment. Has that moved at certain point in time? Are you not satisfying the real target segment that you thought you would satisfy? So which means there is a gap that comes out. These are the kind of analytics that will actually help the organization. The previous form of analytics, which is probably looking at the SLAs vis-a-vis the geographies, is helping the agent to know today, okay, my call sheet today, when I'm looking at an outbound call sheet, my call sheet today talks about 90% of people belonging to this age group or that geography. I know I'm going to have a hard time today. Great. So he knows he's going to have a hard time today. He's prepared. So probably that drives his daily productivity. But overall, for an organization and a contact center, there are much more data points that can be looked at to understand where my customer is moving, what is the customer kind of looking at. Then we also look at certain other KPIs, in a simple way. Look at the process than the outcome. Are you going to look at the number of successful calls within that SLA, or the finis with which the number of calls were handled in terms of the volume by the agent? Or are you going to create some markers in the call process? Now, if an agent did not have a successful outcome, which may not be a referral or let's say a satisfied customer, but there were some markers in his entire call which tell you certain inputs about what he or she did right, which tells you about what you can improve in the process in the future. Those markers have to be built in form of those. And what are those markers? Could be very different markers for different businesses. So these are a few things that I would look at. And very, very strategically, as a chief business officer, very personally, if I were to have my renewal call center, which talks to the customer to kind of help them be engaged with me and pay the renewal premium on time, if they come back and tell me that this is the customer feedback about your product, this is what they're talking about, the process improvement, this is what they're talking about, what we are missing in terms of the target segment, I'll be much happier, because I can put it into my AOP for next strategic 5-year plan and say, you know what, this is what I'm getting on a regular interaction.
Right.
So I would really value those data points coming out as analytics from the entire experience.
Absolutely. And I think on that note, we can move for our closing remarks. And I don't see any questions coming up from the audience yet. One way of looking at this is that they're very happy with the discussion going on so far, and they're truly immersed. And I'm sure they'll try to connect with you on LinkedIn. So I'll nudge everyone to connect with our speakers on LinkedIn. They're very active on LinkedIn. So please make sure that if you have any questions, please reach out to them and try to have a conversation with them on that. So we have talked about customer experience, agent experience, and one thing that I'm looking at here is the way we say that, it's important to put the customer in the customer experience first. When we talk about the agent experience, it's important to put the human in the human agent experience. And that is what you all have beautifully highlighted today, that how can we become more intuitive? How can we connect in a much better way with the customer? It's all about real life experiences and, the challenges we experience on a day-to-day basis. And one thing that Ajay highlighted was using the common sense, which is the greatest weapon that we have, I would say. So moving on, how would you like to close this session, and what are some of the key aspects that you would like the audience to take home and reflect upon? So we can start with you, Shashank. You have been quiet for a while, so we'll start with you. Yeah.
I think what Karthik was trying to tell everyone is your data analytics. Once you have a set of questionnaire which is repetitive, and try to find out automation there, so that once customer is calling on those things, customer gets some automatic support, so that the load is lesser on the SCX. Continuous improvement in terms of training is what we are talking about, and that should be, and keeping the workbench ready every time, so that even attritions can be taken care with your experience people who are sitting on the bench. Third is giving some free time and me time during the working hours for the CX, so that they can go back, take some break, and come back again and again start interacting with the customers. Once we are talking about good CX experience, then your customer will be happy and everything will look very, very happy. So my closing remarks is, keep your front-end people happy with a lot of activity, engagement, training, so and so forth, so that they are happy and keep coming back to us rather than going out from your organization for certain obvious reasons. And ensure your HR, your L&D is also working towards what the reason they are leaving our organization, and how we can work on so that they are not leaving our organizations.
Right. Thank you so much, Shashank. Krishna, how would you like to close the session for us?
So to quickly summarize, right, as rightly my fellow members called out, right, agents are the representative brands to the customers, right? So it's we should give them the attention that they require, right? Starting from the training, align the training program based on the objectives of the brand, as well as the culture of the brand. Set the KPIs clear, like what should be AHT or what should be the FCA, everything. Give the proper guidance during the training phase. Devise the training phase that so that you address the gaps in the existing process. And finally, like, leverage the technology, right? The technology is there. You can bring in a lot of tools. That doesn't mean like bring 10 to 12 tools, which even more make worse for the agents. Bring effective tools, like 2 to 3 effective tools, which is going to solve the problem. And also leverage the AI automations, which will definitely reduce the load on agent. Doesn't mean that's going to it doesn't mean that agents not going to get any work, but they can focus on more complex areas, right? Rather than repetitive L0 tasks, they can focus on more complex area, right?
Okay.
So that, I think, when you provide a happy working, as rightly mentioned by Shashank, when you provide them happy work environment, with all these tools, and I think they'll deliver best and happy agents, happy customers, which in turn helps brand to grow their business.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Krishna. Ajay, your thoughts, please.
Thanks. Not much left to say. My colleagues have covered most of the points. However, I think fundamentals are critical. I know we talk about can agents be less stressed? I think we have to face it. That is life. It toughens them up too. You can't really have a job environment and say, hey, there's no stress. Yes, you can ease it for them. I think with solutions, with responses, with additional responsibility, what one realizes is people are here to work. People come to work with the intent to work. It's very rare that people come to work with any other intention. So all the attributes are right. It's just a question of how the organization leverages the fact that they've come to work, and you develop them. If somebody sees that I have a career path which is progressive, for example, if it's a global BPO, outstanding, because then the opportunities are global. I mean, that's wonderful. That in itself is wonderful. That constant reminder that you have a career here. People are sincere enough to want to come to work. It's, I think, only if you put too much of automation in front of them with no human connect that they start losing that touch. Of course, also the quality or the tenure of an agent is directly proportionate to the quality of the supervisor above her or him. Very important, hire people who supervise are people's people. It's only then you can have below them performing matrices are given by the client. But very, very important, hire the leader. My belief, hire the leaders and the team leaders properly. Very few juniors will leave. And the second is grow from within. So as a policy, after my 6 months of starting in any organization, I mandate that we don't hire from outside. Because if you can't grow people from within, you're constantly going to look at attrition because people inside look out, they lose faith that they'll ever reach that stage. And the pyramid is only narrower as it goes on top. So the opportunities hence come very rarely. To me, that's a wonderful thing to tell people that they have a future here and show it to them, demonstrate to them. Currently, as I stand, in this organization has been 2 years. 30% of my agents are already working outside of the contact center, and they themselves have brought in more contact center people because they say, hey, you know what? We are building a career in real estate. Some have moved on to some of our sister companies, but they're out of a contact center and they're actually working in real estate. So that's the proof of the pudding.
Wow. Yes.
That they're actually doing a job beyond, just a contact center. And well, it's a selfish motive. The normal tenure of somebody who comes fresh into any organization, Arundhati spoke of insurance, but if you get somebody fresh who doesn't come already taught, that person's average tenure goes up 300%. So we have on an average, the person lasts for 3.5, 4 years before they suddenly become real estate experts. And that's a great time frame. Otherwise, you bring people from within the industry, they just look around last 6 months, learn your job, get an increase in salary, and they move out. A fresher will take 2 to 3 years to come up to speed, to understand the industry, and you actually are benefited because then for 3 years you have dedicated terms with employees. Right. Sorry that I gave out one of my secrets, but hey, it can be used anywhere.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ajay. Arundhati, your thoughts, please.
So to sum this up, actually, I'm going to say that we need to treat our contact center agents as internal customers because everything comes through them. So they, in effect, are our own internal customers. So the way we would want them to service our end customers, the different departments, the folks responsible to solution for them, have to treat them the same way. Get back to them on time, train them, sit with them to solution it out, really understand what's happening by going in the bay, by taking continuous feedback, by actually, one of my fellow panelists said that ear to the floor. Without that, you're not going to be able to even solution for the end customer or your internal customer. So that's the first thing. We start treating them as our own customers and see how, we can make their life better. And of course, secondly, is considering that there is so much of solutioning that's happening, making sure that the end objective of customer experience prevails, but the human of it, like Garima, you said, the human aspect of it, that we don't forget that it lies in the shadow as we go towards making customers happy and making sure they come back to us. Let's keep the human agent in mind while doing so.
Right, right. Beautiful, beautiful point, Arundhati. Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry. Can I just, my apologies on Arundhati's point. I think one of the other things is, we use this terminology, contact center, call center. I don't think that is a much valued designation. I'm just using that word as a designation to these people. What I found, you just change the terminology. You call them relationship executives. You call them care executives. Just the fact that you're not calling them call center itself makes a big difference to the psyche of the employee. Sorry for butting in.
No, absolutely. That's a great point. Yeah, Ram, how would you like to add to this?
Yeah, sure. So Ajay, just to add your point, nowadays I see the banks and all, they don't call them as a call center executives, they are calling them VRMs, virtual relationship managers. So I think we are changing that terms in the market. So I think we are going to the next level. Yeah, coming to Garima, just to closure points, right? Like I have two things to highlight here. While everyone has spoken about, how efficiency and productivity, all these things. So I would like to say in this contact center communication approach, let me use the term communication as a service, right? Productivity and efficiency tend to be used interchangeably at senior levels. But to my precisely, there are two different metrics in my view. So productivity is based on the levels of output, whereas efficiency is something more about reducing the waste or what is to be eliminated. So it's all right to say what you want to run a efficient contact center, but just need to be defining what it looks like. So I was just collecting my mentor saying when we are in this service level industry, right, in this based of environment, a contact such as calls, live chats, walk-ins arrive randomly. So we have to be very spontaneous and ready for or to serve to next level. So at any given point in time, your team members or the RMs, whatever we call, they're either engaged in handling a contact or they're waiting for a new contact to arrive, right? So this is something, one of the metrics. And the second thing I would like to put across, the analytics, the advanced analytics, Karima, you were referring to. So to make their performance better, to help the contact center, building the contact center to the next level, how do we nudge the relationship, nudge the service levels? So we can use new tools in the market like, keyword recognitions. When we are talking now we have a lot of APIs, like I was mentioning. We can integrate, we can use Azure services, Google Cloud services. We can have this keyword recognitions in place, real-time transcription, translation, all this is something available. So while agent and customer both are interacting, a supervisor can barge in. A supervisor can see the real-time how many keywords. I think one of our colleagues was telling about how many, how is the, I think Arundhati, you mentioned the pleasant, welcome note or something, right? So a supervisor can monitor in real time whether they have given an open note accurately or a right approach they are doing. So this is something real-time analysis all can be shared across the companies, the leadership management. So anyone can barge into that tool and see the real-time data, instantly go and guide the agents, barge in, snoop in, whatnot. So all that approach can be driven right away, not like the legacy way of listening to the audio recordings, then you train them, there was a process, all that is gone. Those days are gone. So we are in this era of new approach. Let us make use of this new technology and build the new relationships.
Absolutely, Ram. Thank you so much. Karthik, your remarks, please.
Very brief and crisp. I think everybody's spoken about a lot. I think, from a technical perspective, Krishna and Ram, you've given us a lot of insights about what more improvements and enhancements can happen. My two bits are, one, I think we've all spoken about the customer a lot today, which is very, very encouraging. So my first takeaway would be, kind of keep the customer in the center. Everything else falls into place. If each one of us in the organization and an agent understands the customer, we've talked enough, I think everything else will fall into place. Point two, a little bit on this, again, on the segue. Don't treat the contact center or whatever call center, whether outsourced, in-premise, in-house, whatever models one is using, as an outpost, but a home office. The moment you kind of change the lens that you're looking at, from being an outpost to that of being a part of the home office that you are, every aspect of enablement, every aspect of empowerment, every aspect of the way you treat them, the way you call them, the way you progress their careers, as Ajay spoke about, everything, the entire lens changes. So unfortunately, whether whichever models company use, it's still an outpost. I think that's a longer journey that one needs to take.
Right.
And I think these are the two kind of sum up points that I would kind of like to leave the group with.
Thank you so much, Krishna. And it's been amazing listening to all of you. I absolutely love the fact that none of you has sugar-coated anything. You've given us a very raw and realistic picture of the things that are happening on the ground and how important it is to build a strong relationship with the agent to determine how the relationship with the customer is going to be moving forward. So it's been amazing. And thank you so much for making time for this conversation. And I'm sure our audience has some great key takeaways to take from here. And I hope they'll connect with you on LinkedIn as well. And if they have any questions, they'll definitely reach out to you. Thank you so much once again. And I think Ekta has something to say, and then we can conclude.
Thanks, Garima. Just a thank you to all the thought leaders for really taking out a precious time on Friday afternoon and being here, sharing lovely insights. Audiences, thank you so much again for being here with us. And of course, we'll be sharing the video of entire session with you. Also, would love to reconnect you with Ozonetel and Freshworks for their interesting solutions which they spoke about, and shall be getting back to you soon on this. So thank you once again, everyone. Have a lovely evening and a weekend ahead. Stay safe.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for this.
Bye.